Plants vs. Zombies is a franchise that needs no introduction, but if I had to sum it up in just a few phrases, I'd say the franchise whose first game won more than 30 awards like Strategy Game of the Year and Best Casual Game in 2010, the franchise whose sequel was also a massive success, reaching 100 million downloads, the franchise that got not one, not two, but 3 PvP shooter games on major consoles, and the franchise that has been disappointing its fans for about 10 years now. I don't think I need to tell you that Plants vs. Zombies has had one of the biggest fall-offs in gaming history, and if you're not familiar with the franchise, I'm still not going to explain why and how exactly it all went to shit. There are already a ton of videos covering that topic, some of them are quite literally an hour long. An hour just to say that the most evil, soulless gaming corporation acquired PopCap, and after that, PopCap stopped being original, laid off their lead designer and flooded their games with microtransactions. Even in the first game now you've gotta watch ads to get lawnmowers, a basic mechanic. Like what's next, watching 20 ads just to plant a pea shooter? But I digress. The story of Plants vs. Zombies 3 is honestly one of the most depressing things ever. You'd think that after making 2 amazing games, EA would realize that to make a successful third game, all they had to do was add more plants, more zombies, and more levels. But instead, they decided to completely fuck it up. They removed the core sun economy system by taking away the sunflower as a placeable plant, literally the second most iconic plant in the entire franchise. They removed lawnmowers, they filled the game with shitty-ass microtransactions, and they made the art style ugly as fuck. Obviously, the reception of the game was horrible, and after just 1 year in soft launch back in 2020, PvZ3 got pulled from the App Store. PopCap said that they were going to listen to fan feedback and remake the game to be more likable. That was a complete f***ing lie. Because in 2024, they relaunched the game, this time rebranded as Plants vs. Zombies Welcome to Zomburbia, and somehow it was worse. Even more microtransactions, a slightly less ugly art style but still miles below the original, Crazy Dave is now just called Dave, and you can't even choose which plants you bring into a level. So much for strategy. Yeah, they brought back the sunflower and lawnmowers, but that's just the bare minimum. That is stuff that already existed in the first 2 games. Oh, and they also added this really weird mechanic where you have a base. Kind of like those shitty mobile games like Gardenscapes where you unlock new areas as you beat levels. But like, why? This mechanic doesn't fit PvZ at all, not to mention that it really doesn't have anything to the gameplay. And after a few months of getting absolutely blasted with terrible reviews, PopCap decided to rebrand the game again, this time calling it Plants vs. Zombies 3 Evolved. And to give you some context, PopCap and EA really needed this game to be a success. They had just released a $20 remastered version of the original game with shitty AI upscaling that was a complete failure. They needed to redeem themselves somehow. Well, if I'm making this video, you can probably guess how that went. Now, don't get me wrong, Plants vs. Zombies 3 Evolved is not necessarily a bad game. It's actually fairly decent and a straight upgrade from its older versions, as it solves most of the major problems those versions had. But the thing is, this problem shouldn't have even existed in the first place, and I'm not going to give PopCap a pat on the back for putting mechanics in the game that were already in the original game. The new mechanic introduced is written in the title, as you can now combine different types of plants to create stronger ones, and this mechanic would work just fine if it wasn't for the sloppy leveling system that I will talk about in a second. The music is okay, the gameplay is okay, and they decided to keep the cartoonish look similar to the one from the Welcome to Zomburbia version, which I'm not a big fan of, but at least it's not as bad as the 2020 version. And there's also the fact that it's still a Plants vs. Zombies game. The fun concept of the game is still there, despite some stupid decisions. Out of all the things that they could have taken from Plants vs. Zombies 2, they decided to take the worst feature, the leveling system. What this system introduced to Plants vs. Zombies 2 is that in game modes like Penny's Arena, zombies grow stronger as time progresses, getting more HP and dealing more damage to your plants. To the point that if you don't have your plants leveled up enough, you will be tickling normal brown coat zombies. And how do I level up my plants, you ask? Well, you can grind them like a free-to-play player, or you can just go the easy way and buy them. Even though I think the leveling system is complete ass, I don't think it impacted PvZ2 as much as some people think, mostly because the zombies from adventure mode weren't affected by this change. The plants were, which means it made adventure mode significantly easier, but you could also just choose not to level them up if you were up for the challenge. In PvZ3, however, the leveling system not only affects adventure mode but every single game mode as well, and depending on what game mode you're playing, they might scale at a rate your plants most likely won't be able to keep up with. It's very hard to level up your plants past certain levels as the game keeps asking for meteorite shards to upgrade them. And as far as I know, the only way you can get this item is either by beating levels in game modes where the difficulty scales insanely fast, doing daily quests, or by just buying the f***ing battle pass. The free version gives you a small quantity that only lets you upgrade a single plant to level 5. And keep in mind, this same item is required again at levels 5, 10, 15 and 20. And I didn't even know that plants went that high in level. I needed to go to the wiki because I couldn't get one past level 9. The leveling system also doesn't synchronize well at all with the whole combining plants system, and this is best illustrated with an example. In PvZ3, if you combine 2 pea shooters you get a repeater, and if you combine 2 repeaters you get a Gatling pea. But the thing is, the pea shooter, the repeater and the Gatling pea are different plants that need to be upgraded individually, which means you can reach a point where your pea shooter is so much stronger than the Gatling pea that it's not even worth combining a total of 4 pea shooters to get one, which makes the combining plant system useless at times. And speaking of that, let's now talk about the fusions and how the game fundamentally fails at making them fun. The concept of fusing 2 different or equal plants together to get a new unique plant is very neat. It leads players to seek different plant combinations to help them suppress different challenges. A plant that used to be just a certain tool in your deck can now serve multiple purposes, and weaker plants can now have a second chance as they can become part of a stronger plant. Overall, the introduction of this mechanic should only benefit a game that revolves around strategy and planning your defenses. But in practice, it's way different. It's very clear where PopCap took inspiration from for this fusion system, because months before PvZ3 Evolved was announced, a very popular Plants vs Zombies Chinese mod was getting attention in the community. Plants vs Zombies Fusion made by Lan Piao Piao Fly. The potential that Lan Piao saw in this concept to make a fun mod for the community, PopCap saw as an opportunity to make money. To unlock new fusions, you have to get a new item called plant seeds for each corresponding plant in the fusion. And just like every necessary item in this game, it's hard to get it. There are many ways to get it, but all of them just give you a small amount when you need a lot of it to unlock fusions. The Zen Garden, for example, is a consistent way to get plant seeds for a specific plant you want. But the process of getting them is tedious as fuck. You plant a plant, do a minigame to win an item to use on that plant, wait 15 minutes, merge that plant with another one, do another minigame to get another item to use on the new plant, wait 4 fucking hours, repeat the process to get another equal plant so you can finally fuse them, and wait 6 more hours, only to get 18 plant seeds, when some fusions literally need 300 seeds to be unlocked. A game about fusing plants, but you make 90% of those fusions not accessible to the player. Then why the f shouldn't I just go play the Chinese mod? I don't need to pay for any fusions there. Okay, fine. Let's say you grind for a bit and you're finally able to get the plant fusion you wanted. Congratulations, your new plant is fucking useless. By the time you unlock a certain fusion, the plants needed for it are way stronger than the fusion itself because of their levels. So you're better off just leaving your plants in their basic state rather than fusing them. The only real thing incentivizing you to fuse plants in this game is the lawn space you have available. While a Gatling pea only occupies 1 tile, 4 pea shooters take up 4. And the game kinda tries to force this by making some lawn tiles unavailable for the player. But do you want to know a little secret? It doesn't matter. The number of tiles where you cannot place plants is so low that it's basically insignificant, allowing you to still spam the same plant across the entire lawn without running into any issues. Also, this is like not a great way to encourage players to fuse plants.
What kind of place is this?
Okay, I have talked a lot about the plants, but they are only half of the game. So what about the zombies? Are they redeemable, and do they actually fulfill their role in the game? The role that zombies have in this franchise has always been as crucial as the ones that the plants have. While the plants provide the tools for the player to beat a level, the zombies provide the challenge. They are the ones that test your defenses and ultimately define if the player's strategy was good or bad. They are the game's progression engine, defining how the difficulty should escalate through the introduction of new zombies with different gimmicks. The introduction of these new zombies also needs to be strategic. Obviously, a football zombie shouldn't be introduced in the first levels as it can easily break through the player's defenses. But it also shouldn't be introduced in the final levels because by that point the player has already unlocked multiple counters for it. A specific strategy should only get a player so far before needing to change it. Sure, a good strategy should beat multiple levels, but at some point the game needs to introduce a new threat to counter it and force the player to change something. All in all, the game's progression can't feel unfair for either side. If the zombies' difficulty escalates too quickly, the player can easily get overwhelmed. But on the other hand, if the same plant strategy wins every single level, the game quickly becomes boring because it's too easy. With that said, let's get back to the question: do zombies fulfill this role in this new game? The answer is no, they do not. Through all the videos I have watched reviewing the game and pointing out its many flaws, people tend to overlook just how poorly the zombies are handled, as they fundamentally fail their purpose, providing a challenge. There are a lot of new zombies in this game with some unique gimmicks, but none of them really make you change the way you approach a level. And that's also tied to the fact that you don't even have that many plants to begin with. The game has 13 Tier 1 plants, 5 Tier 2 plants, and 1 Tier 3 plant. And the rest, as I mentioned, is locked behind a rigged grinding system. With such a small selection of Tier 1 plants to choose from, it's only natural that there's no zombie with a very complex mechanic, because at least one of these 13 plants needs to be effective at taking him down. So most of the time, the zombie's gimmick is just that he has more health than normal, blocks projectiles, or is faster than usual, which objectively is not a great design, because a plant that does high damage, attacks fast, and doesn't rely on projectiles ends up being able to deal with pretty much every zombie in the game. And that leads us to Zaptail. I shit you not when I tell you that I beat 30 levels in a row just by using this one plant, apart obviously from the sunflower. I quite literally just spammed Zaptails across the entire lawn for 30 levels and won every single one of them. How the hell do you go 30 levels without introducing a single zombie that can stop this horrendous strategy? Oh sorry, did I say 30 levels? I meant to say the whole 100 that this game has. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, I only completed about 50 of them because, like I said, I was basically spamming one plant and that's not very fun, but I did some research to see if at some point the gameplay loop actually changed. So I watched gameplay from the king of PvZ himself, Zach Scott Games, and he was doing quite literally the same thing I was. My man raw dogged every level using this exact strategy, just spamming Zaptails across the entire lawn. Of course there are some small exceptions like the introduction of the excavator zombie and the pigeon zombie, but they are such minor inconveniences that you just need to get one extra plant to counter them, and then go right back to spamming Zaptails. I guess you can choose not to do this and try to have some fun building different strategies, but like I said, you don't have that many plants and you basically have no evolutions. I played the game for almost 2 weeks and I was only able to unlock 2 of them. Ultimately, all the mechanics in this game just don't synchronize well with each other. You can fuse plants to get new ones, but you need to grind a lot to unlock those fusions, and even if you have them, it's more efficient to not combine plants at all and just stick with basic tier 1 plants. The adventure mode provides no challenge whatsoever since you can clear it with a single plant, while the other game modes are insanely difficult because zombie levels scale way too fast, forcing you to level up your plants, or else no matter what strategy you use, you are not gonna win. PvZ 3 Evolved is definitely the best out of the 3 versions of the game that have come out over the last 10 years, but it's still not good. And it all comes down to the fact that PopCap doesn't know what the fuck PvZ fans want and doesn't listen to feedback either. The main criticisms of the first 2 versions of PvZ 3 were that they were trying to copy the formula of some successful mobile game, which doesn't even make sense when you think about it, because PvZ 1 and 2 are successful mobile games, and also because of the microtransactions that that make the player feel forced to pay if they actually want to make progress. And yet, in this latest version it still has the exact same problems. The game has entered a sort of hell loop, in which PopCap develops the game, launches it to the public, the game is received negatively by fans, they take it off the mobile stores saying they are going to improve it with feedback, and then months later deliver a game that is completely different but still has the same core problems. Time and time again, PopCap has proven that it doesn't learn from its mistakes, and EA won't do anything about it and will gladly publish a game that has no appeal whatsoever. People might look at this video and think I'm just another YouTuber trying to bank on yet another PopCap failure, but I'm a guy who, like many of you, grew up playing Plants vs Zombies, and it really hurts seeing one of the franchises I grew up with go down the drain. And while I'm not the best person to talk about this, I think I might have an idea why this keeps happening. I want you to go ahead and open the first Plants vs Zombies game, the original one. I want you to beat the game, and after that, after you're done listening to one of the best songs in the whole game, I want you to pay attention to the credits. I want you to notice how small the team that made this game is. A team of people whose hard work made a game that is still praised by fans to this day. If there's anyone out there who could make a good third Plants vs Zombies game, it's definitely them. You don't need a big corporate team to make a great game. You just need a small group of people who fundamentally understand the game's concept. And until PopCap stops spitting on these people's legacy and understands that, I highly doubt we will ever get a good third game, hence the title of this video.